I used to think that all the answers were in science. I was a professor at the university and headed the department. I believed that man was the judge and measure of everything. I did not believe in God and thought that those people who believed in this were crazy. If there was a God for me, it was myself. I decided for myself what was good and what was bad, where the truth was and where it was not. I believed only in myself and was a cold-blooded person. This is how art professor Howard Storm describes his first half of life. Howard Storm was 38 years old when he experienced clinical death, during which the professor visited the other side. Howard Storm claimed that during his clinical death, he found himself in a place that can be called the vestibule of hell. 38-year-old Howard Storm, along with his wife and his students, was on a 3-week trip around Europe. That day they were staying in Paris. It was Saturday. Howard Storm returned to the hotel after a walk around the city and felt incredible pain. He fell and rolled on the floor in pain. It felt like there was a fire burning inside him. I was taken to the hospital. Here they told me that a hole had formed in my stomach. I needed an urgent operation. However, there was no surgeon available in the hospital I was taken to. I had to lie there waiting for the operation without any care. An elderly Frenchman was lying in the ward with me. He saw how I was suffering and tried to help me. But all his efforts were in vain, Howard Storm recalled. He fought for his life for several hours. When the nurse came into his room once again to check on his health and to tell him that a doctor had not yet been found, Storm felt his strength leave him. He told his wife that he was dying. Howard Storm did not believe in God, and therefore in the fact that the human soul continues to exist after death. The professor understood that his life was over, and that it was over forever. He was stifled by pride and self-pity. Storm did not want to die in oblivion on a metal hospital bed, but he could not stand this pain any longer. Howard Storm lost consciousness with thoughts of his absurd death. Then I came to my senses again. I was surprised that I had been dying a couple of minutes ago, and suddenly I was able to get out of bed and felt fine. Nothing hurt. The only thing that confused me was that there was a person lying in my bed who looked like me. But it was not me, because I was standing next to him. A person cannot be in two places at once. It scared me, so I decided not to look in the direction of the bed on which that person was lying, Howard Storm says. Moving away from the bed, Storm saw an ajar door to the ward. It was dark in the hospital corridor. In this darkness, Howard Storm made out several figures. They were calling him. Storm asked these people, "Have you come to take me to surgery?" In response he heard, "We know what you need. We know everything about you. Follow us." Howard Storm left the room, leaving his wife behind. He hurried along the hospital corridor after the figures who were supposed to take him to the surgeon. They walked for a long time until Howard Storm finally noticed that even the weakest sources of light had disappeared from his path. He found himself in darkness. Only now did Howard Storm begin to guess what a mistake he had made by leaving his room. Howard Storm decided to ask his companions when they would arrive in the operating room. One of them replied that there was no time to ask questions, every minute was important now. Storm followed them again. But as his anxiety grew, he continued to ask questions. And each time the answer to them became more and more sharp. Finally, he decided not to go further until he received the necessary explanations. I announced that I would not move until I was answered. Someone from the darkness hissed to me that we were almost there. But I did not believe these people anymore. I stopped. Then I felt someone begin to pull and push me. In the darkness, I tried to push away everyone who was attacking me. After that, they began to scratch me. I think there were many of them, because I kept pushing them away from me, and they rushed at me with even greater force, says Howard Storm. Soon he felt exhausted. Howard Storm could not resist any longer. He fell to the floor. Storm felt as if he was being torn apart. He recalled, at that moment, a terrible laughter reached me from all sides. In the midst of this laughter, Howard Storm made out someone's voice, or perhaps it was his own. It told him to pray. Howard Storm clung to these words as his only and last hope. He began to remember the prayers he had been taught as a child. It was not very coherent. But even such prayers made those who tormented him retreat. Howard Storm prayed until their voices died down. He was left alone. Soon Howard Storm saw rays of light that began to surround him. In these rays, pictures from his life began to unfold before him. In one of them, Howard Storm saw himself speaking rudely to his mother. In another, he was shown how he fought with his father. Storm saw episodes from his life in which he did not spare his students. During this viewing, Howard Storm did not see a single picture where he was praised for his achievements, where he was presented with awards. All this was also in his life, but here it became unimportant. From the episodes of his life that were shown at that moment, Howard Storm realized that only his attitude towards people was taken into account here. When I came to in my body, and when I had the operation, I saw my wife. I had so much to tell her. I described to her everything I had seen. I finished my story like this: now I understand that our short life on earth is given to us only to prepare us for the most important thing, to choose our eternal destiny. And do you know what my wife answered me? She said, "You need rest, you have not come to your senses yet." My wife thought I was going crazy. But everything I experienced was more real than my life. And although I remember in great detail what I had to go through, I still cannot give a rational explanation for it, said 67-year-old Howard Storm, who left the university after the incident and became a priest. And you can understand him. Any atheist in his place would have done exactly the same.